Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel, I Hate Rock Music. And today I want to talk about the amazing band Rip Rig and Panic. And they are a great example of what's called post-punk. When the primitiveness of punk had kind of exploded into all kinds of different new explorations come the early 80s. And Rip Rig and Panic are a great example of that. And they grew out of the ashes of a latter-day punk band called the Pop Group. And I first came across them because I was just buying any new interesting records that came out during that era. And this one came out on Virgin Records, and they had a single called "This Is It, Go Go Go." And I just bought it and took it home, and it was completely blown away. And then I immediately bought their first album, God, when it came out. So that's how I came across them. Of course, they're named after a famous Ross on Roland Kirk album where he plays with the rhythm section from John Coltrane's band. A great record, but a great name for a band too. And they were only around from 1980 to 1983. And Bruce Smith, the drummer, and Gareth Sager, the guitar player from the Pop Group, formed this band. And they added Sean Oliver on bass, Mark Springer on piano, and a teenage Nina Cherry on vocals. She's the daughter of jazz trumpeter Don Cherry. And of course, this was long before she became famous as a pop singer. She was a great addition to this band and really added a great front person and flavor to this group. I can't imagine too many vocalists that would have blended in with this mixture they did. And they were described as a conglomeration of dub, reggae, African music, jazz, punk, funk, and it definitely is all in there. And then, of course, they're also noted for amazing song titles. One of the songs off their first album, God, is "Get Your Elbow Out of My Soup, You're Sitting on My Chicken." And in fact, back when I was a DJ at a local club, I used to play that song because it's very funky and very danceable, but very experimental as well, and a really frantic group at their best, but also areas of really lush semi-jazz pieces, and then great dub and everything else in between. So they added other members as they went along. A guy named Flash on sax, Andy Oliver, another vocalist, David DeFries on trumpet, and Sarah Sarahandi on viola. And so that first single came out in 1981, followed by their first double record, although it wasn't really double album. It's two 12-inchers, which really maximized the sound. So God came out in 1981. Then they followed it with I Am Cold in 1982, and it just expanded on what they did. A lot more longer numbers, a lot more experimentation, some great solo piano work. Don Cherry guests on trumpet, and just a really wonderful record. And then in 1983, they finished up their career with an album called Attitude. It was a lot more short tunes, a little more commercial for them. And they had some affinities with the Slits and also a band called This Heat. In fact, Charles Hayward and Charles Bollins of This Heat contributed some of the work by Rip Rig and Panic. So, and then to finish off the move towards something more commercial, most of the band remained intact and changed their name to Float Up CP and released one last album in 1985. But I'm not going to cover that as much. But they also had a string of 12-inchers with extended mixes and then usually non-LP B-sides. And one 12-inch, Bob Hope Takes Risks, wasn't on any LP, the A-side, but they put up Bob Hope Takes Risks, You're My Kind of Climate, Do the Tightrope, Beat the Beast. All really accessible tunes, very lively, incredible instrumentation. As I mentioned before, just a great amalgamation of free jazz, reggae, punk, a lot of improv, African music, funk. There really is no other band quite like them, and they're one of my favorite bands of that era, and certainly one of my favorite bands of all time. They're utterly unique, and you have to hear them to believe them. Fortunately, we have a couple of short live clips by them now that are on YouTube. I'll post those below, and I'll also post the albums below. If you've never heard them, you really owe it to yourself. If you're a fan of really expansive post-punk, jazz inflected, a little bit of psychedelia, a little punk, a little funk, it's all in there. And they just have an exuberance it's really unequaled by other bands, and they still don't seem to have gotten a legacy. I don't really hear a lot of people talking about them, and like I say, I just think they're one of the most wonderful bands of that era, and I highly recommend them. And their three albums are absolutely indispensable. So as I say, I'll put the links below. If you haven't heard them, check them out. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music. I'm Brian Fox.